Hey everybody, Daniel from Spacedock here, back with another top 5 list. This time it's top 5 sci-fi destroyers, and just to clarify, that ship's properly in the destroyer role with a destroyer specialization, so not star destroyers, which are in fact battleship carrier hybrids. Okay, let's get started. In 5th place, it's the Confederate Recusant-class light destroyer, or Recusant if you want to say it that way, from Star Wars prequel trilogy era. I like this ship a lot for various reasons. I like that it's a specialized design within the Confederate fleet. Overall, the Confederate Navy is a lot more realistically versatile than the Republic one, I think. The Republic sort of delineates all of their designs into 2 or 3 ships, which is kind of realistic given how quickly they needed to assemble their navy, etc. But the Confederate one is a little bit more varied, and it gives us this nice ship in the light destroyer category. It has a very skeletal space frame. This ship was designed by the Quarren, who are native to Mon Cala, much like the Mon Calamari, which also creates a nice divide between the Mon Calamari and them, as I believe the Mon Calamari were helping build Republic ships during the war, leaving the planet in a pretty much constant state of civil war during the Clone Wars. This expands upon the kind of organic, sort of pre-rebellion designs that we see with the Providence class, etc., but I like how this is combined with the more skeletal, diminishing frame toward the back. It's very menacing. It's got a great shape to it. Unfortunately, we only see it in sort of center stage in a few episodes of Clone Wars. I'd really like to see this used more, as it fits really nicely into the Confederate fleet and looks great. In 4th place, the O'Neill-class destroyer, an Asgard ship from Stargate. This is a really cool-looking ship, and it's one of Stargate's crazy, hyper-advanced, supremely overpowered designs, which I always love reading about. You may not have noticed, but the ship is designed to look like a Viking helmet when viewed from the front, with those 2 horns. That's a little Asgard in-joke there. And we've seen the ship do some crazy things throughout the series. They regularly fight off replicator cruisers. We see them tearing through gold ships, and in the Battle of the Supergate, one even briefly throws down with some Ori motherships. Unfortunately, the fact that the ship is made out of a Naquadah carbon trinium composite that's supposedly almost indestructible meant that the replicators took a special interest in it because they quite like to eat rare metals and recycle them. So in a few of the episodes we see this in, it is running away from replicators. But really, this is one of the designs that exactly hits the sort of grandiose impression we're supposed to get of the Asgard. It's elegant and it's silver and dramatic and it looks great. And you can clearly see the refinement and improvement over the older Asgard Belisknir class, which we sometimes see this alongside. Like a lot of the more crazy ships in Stargate, this ship can effortlessly hop between galaxies. It has farcically overpowered weapons and shields that can endure coronal mass ejections, all kinds of craziness. A lot of the technology ends up being given to the Tauri. This plays a huge part in some of my favourite episodes: Small Victories, Unnatural Selection, and Camelot, which is maybe my favourite episode of SG-1. And overall, it was a ship that did a great job of letting you know that important stuff was going down whenever it showed up. Gorgeous ship from an awesome faction in a great show, and it's even named after one of the characters for their accomplishments that we see in the series. Love that kind of continuity, and I love the O'Neill class. Next up, it's the Halberd-class destroyer from Halo. This might be my favourite design in the Halo franchise. It's just a really awesome-looking, angular human warship. It breaks a little from the normal, more blocky convention of UNSC ship design, but I think it does so in a really unique and interesting way. I love those slanted hull plates towards the front with the nameplate illuminated on them, and the Mac battery laid underneath. The way it splays out into the 4 engine clusters at the back is really cool, and it's a good, realistically sized destroyer by comparison to the rest of the fleet. It plays a nice, distinct and clear role in the UNSC Navy. I really wish we'd seen this more. It's largely confined to expanded universe material, novels and magazines and such. It's never managed to show up in any of the games or anything. Perhaps with the upcoming Halo TV show or any of the future games, we may one day get a well-deserved look at the Halberd-class destroyer, I think, because this ship certainly deserves to be placed in the limelight. It's one of the coolest designs that's graced this franchise. Just for reference, this ship is 485 meters long, which seems to fit the proper use of the word destroyer quite nicely when you compare it to the rest of the UNSC, and it has a very sort of aggressive glass cannon kind of role from what we can discern from the lore information. It's also very heavy on missiles. The main Mac battery is supported by 26 Archer missile pods and 3 nuclear missile silos, meaning that pretty much all of its armament, apart from the main gun and the point defense, is missile-based, which again would make for some really dramatic visuals if it was ever to make its way into a game or into the TV show. Really cool design. not nearly as much awareness as it deserves, and I hope it gets more in the future. In second place, it is the awesome Warlock-class destroyer, my favourite ship from Babylon 5. This design is incredibly cool. It's the first human warship designed to use horizontal artificial gravity after they acquired that technology, and it's kind of an expansion on some of the design elements of the Nova and Omega class, but it is a clear step forward into a new generation of ship design. It has those really cool outrigged missile pods on the port and starboard, the various gun batteries along the top. It has a fighter launch bay on the bow, but if you look closely, there are two outcroppings at the aft. In fact, I don't think there are any good pictures of this, so Alistair's going to have a hard time editing this one. But if you play the Babylon Project or some other Babylon 5 game, you can see that the retrieval bays for the Star Furies are at the aft side on the port and starboard, creating this sort of flow through the ship that allows fighters to be landed and rearmed and launched again without clogging it all up. Really, really cool. The ship has this wonderful sort of tiled, sloping armor with these sort of crisscross patterns along the plating for all the materials it's made of. You can see where the Vorlon and Minbari technology has been introduced, and it would have been very easy for them to design some kind of hideous ship with lots of yellow bits sticking out of it to visually communicate that it's got Vorlon technology going on. But instead they made that subtle and worked in, and it's implied that a lot of the technology is on a software level, which is really, really cool. And tragically, we barely ever see this ship at all. We see it in, I think, a couple of episodes of Crusade. We hear about it a fair bit off screen, and we see it in a gorgeous sequence in Babylon 5 The Lost Tales. For about 2 seconds we get to see this thing properly throwing down with all of its weapons in proper remastered VFX, and it looks incredible, and it's a terrible, terrible shame that we never got to see more of this ship. Also, as an interesting point, some of you may or may not know, all of the Warlock-class destroyers that were built and commissioned have various names to do with wizardry or wizards or witches as an extension of the theme of their class. We know of the EAS Merlin, the EAS Enchantress, EAS Sorceress. Love those kinds of little naming conventions, and in this case they're applied to a truly, truly fantastic ship. If Babylon 5 ever returns to our screens in some kind of reboot or something, which I seriously hope it does, I really hope we see this gorgeous ship given the limelight it deserves. And in first place, from Star Wars The Old Republic, the Terminus-class destroyer. Now, the ship design of the Sith Empire in Star Wars The Old Republic is just top-notch. Some of the coolest designs in the entire Star Wars franchise, the Harrower-class dreadnought, and of course the Terminus-class destroyer. This takes the typical sort of grey, wedge-shaped Imperial design, which of course is a sort of progenitor in this case, as it dates back thousands and thousands of years, and it uses it in a really interesting way, the same kind of way that they later applied with the Raider Corvette, to drag it out into this long, narrow, pointed vessel. I love the extended fins at the back, the two overhead ones, and the back sort of port and starboard extensions. It looks fast and aggressive and weighty, and it has that direct pointed underslung hull where it kind of tapers to a point. The bridge area is laid in behind those two sloped shield areas, and you see that kind of protruding sensor cluster at the bow. The whole thing looks really grounded and workable and real, and it's a great design. I really loved the opening of Knights of the Fallen Empire, where we finally got to see like a big grand space battle that was largely centered around a Terminus-class Darth Mars ship, where we see how well the ship performs as it holds off against hundreds and hundreds of vessels from what is a unknowably powerful empire that's caught them completely off guard. It lasts far longer than it has any right to, just laying into those ships while it evacuates. And you also, if you choose to, have the opportunity to ram it into one of the Eternal Empire battleships, which is pretty cool. The ship is 500 meters long. It's got bow-mounted fixed turbo laser cannons, various adjustable turbo laser turrets, normal laser cannons, ion cannons, and concussion missiles. Apparently it has a hangar bay, which I assume is hidden somewhere on the bottom. I can't see the protrusion myself, but it carries 14 starfighters, 2 bombers, and 3 shuttles, as well as a crew of 520 and space for 285 troops. And also, while this clearly has the visual aesthetic of a Star Destroyer, or what will become a Star Destroyer, it's nice to see this ship be used as a destroyer. It is a smaller, fast attack support vessel that goes alongside the larger Harrower-class dreadnoughts, which are more analogous to what would eventually become the role of the Star Destroyer. I love seeing these ships in game. Whenever they show up, it's great. Frankly, whenever any Imperial Sith vessel shows up in Star Wars The Old Republic, it's always a great moment, and I always remember to take screenshots and such, because you've got to take advantage when they pass. You can't replay cutscenes in The Old Republic, and it's really nice nice to have crisp footage of these, and making my old video on this ages and ages ago was one of my favourite Spacedock videos to make. I think I'll need to refit it at some point and produce a more up-to-date video with some better editing, because that was back in the day when the pre-Alistair days when it was all horribly edited. But yep, the Terminus class destroyer, gorgeous ship from one of the coolest fleets in the entire Star Wars franchise, now sadly condemned to Legends. If I had the opportunity to bring anything from Legends into the new canon in any way, shape or form, it would be the ship designs of the Sith Empire, because they were fantastic and they deserve more limelight, which I think has been a running theme in this video. All 5 of my favourite destroyers were sadly underrepresented in their respective franchises, but hopefully at least some of them can win some more screen time in the future. Thank you all for watching. This is Daniel from Spacedock, signing off.
Thank you for watching Spacedock. Please remember to like, subscribe and share for more science fiction spacecraft summaries. If you enjoy the channel, why not consider pledging your support on Patreon? For just $1 a month, you'll be able to access the Spacedock schedule to see what's coming up.